Hi everyone, I'm Any New Province, and this week we're playing Mono Black All-in Aggro for Net Benefits, the series where we explore the benefits of net decking in Pauper. Mono Black Aggro is a known quantity in Pauper. However, Robert Cucinato's list that they took to a top 8 finish at RIW Hobbies 1K this winter has a different way to accelerate their creatures out. Before I get into the deck tech, I just want to remind you that you can like the video or subscribe to the channel down below. I'd seriously appreciate it. It's a great way to let me know you've enjoyed everything, and it really encourages me to keep making great Pauper content. Alright, let's have a look at All-in Aggro. As with most lists of this kind, we have a ton of 1-drops to get that party started as soon as we draw our opening 7. Our 1-drops start with Vampire Lacerator. Vampire Lacerator costs 1 black mana for a 2/2, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life unless an opponent has 10 or less life. Hopefully, they're always going to have 10 or less life because we're going to be attacking them all the time. We've also got Thornbow Archer, which was bugged until recently, but I'm super glad it isn't anymore. It costs 1 black mana for a 1/2, and whenever it attacks, each opponent who doesn't control an elf loses 1 life. It's pretty fringe when you're playing this deck up against elves. I guess that is a downside for Thornbow Archer, but we can sideboard them out if we have to. We also have Night Market Lookout, which is pretty similar to our Thornbow Archer. It costs 1 black mana for a 1/1, and whenever it becomes tapped, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. It's awesome to have Night Market Lookout as a little bit of life buffer. It actually matters because we're going to be damaging ourselves in a lot of ways, and we got to make sure we stay above water in those burn matchups. Finally, we have Karnaphage. It costs 1 black mana for a 2/2, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you have to tap it unless you pay 1 life. We're almost always going to be paying for this 1 life unless our opponent has something like an Augur Bolas in the way and it just won't get through. We are staying very low to the ground here, but we do have a single 2-drop for its evasive ability. This is Dottie Slayer. It costs black for a 2/2, and it has Shadow. Also, it attacks each combat if able. As I was saying, Augur Bolas can definitely be an issue for this deck, so we're super glad to have a bit of evasion on Dottie Slayer. Also, on the turn that it comes down while it's summoning sick and not attacking, it can even block a Shadow Rifted Tireless Tribe. If our torrent of creatures can't do the trick, we also have a bunch of Blackburn to help speed up our clock as well. Our first Blackburn spell is Tyrant's Choice. It costs 1 and a black for a sorcery, and it has the Will of the Council ability, which means starting with you, each player votes for death or torture. If death gets more votes, each opponent sacrifices a creature. If torture gets more votes or the vote is tied, each opponent loses 4 life. This is the mode we're going to be using most often. We also have Bump in the Night, which costs 1 black mana to cause target opponent to lose 3 life. We can flash it back for 5 and a red out of our graveyard, but we only have a little bit of red mana in our deck. I don't know, maybe it'll come up. Next up, we have some interaction. Like I said, our opponents can get stonewalled by our opponent's creatures pretty easily, so we've got to make sure we keep them out of the way. Our first interactive spell is Spinning Darkness. Spinning Darkness is an instant that would normally cost 4 black, but you may exile the top 3 black cards of your graveyard rather than pay this spell's mana cost. We're going to have lots of black cards in our graveyard to do that. We have Spinning Darkness deal 3 damage to target non-black creature. It also gains you 3 life. Again, a nice little life total buffer against our creatures who we're paying life for to keep active. We also have 2 copies of Soul Reap, which cost 1 and a black for a sorcery and destroy target non-green creature. Its controller loses 3 life if you cast another black spell this turn. That shouldn't be too hard to set up. We've got 2 copies of Snuff Out, a card most people are pretty familiar with now due to blue-black 1-drops. It costs 3 and a black for an instant, but if you control a swamp, you can pay 4 life rather than pay Snuff Out's mana cost. It destroys target non-black creature. That creature can't be regenerated. We're also running just a little bit of card advantage. We're going to dump our hand really quickly, so we need a way to refill so that we can keep the pressure on our opponents. That card advantage spell is Sign in Blood. Sign in Blood costs black for a sorcery and causes target player to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Yes, target player. So if we can get our opponent down to 2, we can even kill them with the Sign in Blood for style points. Finally, we have what I think is the most exciting innovation on this deck in some mana acceleration. We have 4 Lotus Petals to start things off. This is how we're going to flash back that Bump in the Night. Lotus Petal is absolutely free. It's an artifact, and you can tap it and sacrifice it to add 1 mana of any color. This is great for accelerating out our creatures on turn 1. We're also running Dark Ritual, which is more typically found as the accelerator in these mono black aggressive lists. It costs 1 black mana for an instant and adds 3 black mana to your mana pool so that we can play 3 1-drops right on turn 1 and get those those beats moving. All right, let's have a look at this mana base. Nice and simple, just 15 swamps. We want to make sure we have that turn 1 untapped swamp into Dark Ritual into 3/1 drops. This is how we're going to do it. All right, let's have a look at this sideboard, starting with 3 copies of Duress to check our opponent's hand for any wrath effects or counter spells that'll foil our plan of getting 3/1 drops out. We have a Gurmag Angler or 2 if we have to go over our opponent, or if it has to get in the way of some Mirror Enforcers. We have 3 copies of Wrench Mine for dealing with those decks that need a critical number of cards in hand. We have 2 copies of Kuumbaj Witches for pinging those fairies out of the sky, 2 copies of Paralyze for locking our opponent's creatures down, 2 copies of Shrivel for wrathing X1s, and a copy of Disfigure if our Shrivels are just a little too small to do the trick. And there you have it, all in mono black aggro by Robert Cucinato. Congratulations on your finish at the 1K, Robert. We're going to take this deck into a league at twitch.tv/AnyNewProvince this Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Atlantic time. We're there every Wednesday night playing competitive Pauper decks. Before I go, I just want to remind you that you can like the video or subscribe to the channel down below. I'd seriously appreciate it. It's a great way to let me know you've enjoyed everything, and it really encourages me to keep making great Pauper content. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this deck tech, and hopefully I'll see you on Wednesday night.